Protests flaring in Iran. The reformists attack the integrity of the elections, and the defeated candidate Moussaoui calls for the cancellation of the vote. 30 years after the Islamic Revolution, is the divide deepening between the reformists and the conservatives? In what direction will Iran move under Ahmadinejad? And will the West engage or further isolate the Islamic Republic? Iranian elections spill over and the future of the political system. This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I am Hashim Al-Barra. Any suggestion that the Iranian elections were not fair is false. That's according to the re-elected President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Rioting erupted in Iran after results of Friday's elections were announced this weekend. The Iranian Interior Ministry said that there was an 85% turnout of the electorate. Ahmadinejad won with 62.6% of the vote, almost double that of his nearest contender Mir Hussein Moussaoui. He won just 33.8%. But protesters took to the streets on Saturday. They claim unfair treatment in the elections and say the result does not reflect the will of the people. Around 100 Iranian reformists have been arrested, accused of organizing the unauthorized protests. The leader of the reformist opposition, Mir Hussein Moussaoui, has called the elections a dangerous charade and issued this statement. I have submitted my official formal request to the Guardian Council to cancel the election result. I urge you, Iranian nation, to continue your nationwide protests in a peaceful and legal way. But Mahmoud Ahmadinejad says claims that the election was unfair are unfounded.
They
believe in a democracy in which they approve of the outcome. If people reach a decision that is different to what they want, they will be upset. And to show their sadness, there is no other way they can express their dissatisfaction. It's not clear how they're questioning the participation of about 40 million people in these elections. The judiciary system in Iran is extremely accurate, and since these elections belong to these people, conducting and monitoring the elections was done by the people.
Joining us now are our guests in London, Shervin Zainalzadeh. He's an international security specialist and writes frequently on Iranian affairs. And in Columbus, Ohio, Sohrab Bahdad. He is a professor of economics at Denison University. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for joining us. Let me start by asking Mr. Sohrab in Ohio, were the polls that suggested an easy win for Moussaoui wrong, or just simply the media underestimated the standing of Ahmadinejad among the Iranians?
Well, we can debate about sampling of votes and population and their orientation. However, there are a number of indications that are very clear that there was some fixing of the votes. And those are, I can say very briefly, one is in the violation of all the regulations of vote counting, which requires that the votes be counted, and after 3 days, within 3 days, anyone who has any complaints could come and register for a complaint. And after that, it has to be approved by the Guardian Council. Now, in this case, all the 39 million votes were counted within a matter of a few hours, and these are all paper ballots. And the vote was given. And in addition, the exaggerated differences in the votes is quite startling. It is very improbable that the difference would be so much, or cases like Karoubi getting only 300,000 votes. I think there was more attempt to shaming the opposition than presenting and preventing going possibly to a second round if it comes, if Moussaoui had not won in the first round.
Okay, but then Mr. Shervin Zainalzadeh, how can we safely assume that the vote was rigged when we know that the process itself was supervised by the Ministry of Interior with no presence of independent international monitors?
Yes, well, this notion of being rigged is a very alarming one as far as I'm concerned. There were, in fact, monitors in polling stations representing both candidates and independent monitors. These people had to apply for permission and passes to be able to be a monitor for this election. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the reports that I have seen and people that I've spoken to, there were monitors at all stations. I believe there was some confusion when
Karoubi and Moussaoui said that their representatives were not allowed to take part in the process of counting the votes.
Well, the counting would have to have been done by independent auditors for this situation. All independent monitors and all candidates' monitors would have been present, I believe, one for each one. What comes into dispute is that there have been reports that I've spoken to people who have said there have been more than one monitor for each candidate trying to gain access, which obviously confuses the situation, and that's where reports may speculate from that there were access denied to some monitors.
Mr. Sohrab, Moussaoui is asking for the cancellation of the vote.
The problem is not...
We'll definitely go back and talk in detail about those issues. But let me ask you this question. So, Moussaoui has been asking for the cancellation of the vote. Is this more of a desperate move, knowing that the Supreme Leader has already congratulated Ahmadinejad, saying that the vote was normal?
Perhaps it is quite unlikely that they would do that. They would accept that cancellation. But nothing is for sure in the Islamic Republic, and it all depends how the negotiation goes. And there are different contenders in this matter. But the strongest contender here is the Guardians of Revolution, the Pastaran, and they have declared that they would not allow a Velvet Revolution take place, and this is the position that they had before the election. So it is very unlikely that they would accept it.
All right, Mr. Shervin, is this all squabble over semantics, or precisely a prelude to a dramatic change in the society itself?
No, this is just the dust after the storm of any election. There's always going to be a rational reaction to election results, be it your party that wins or an opposition party who you don't support that wins. And what we're seeing now is just the dust still flying around, and this has happened in the past. We've seen similar cases in the United States on the second election of President George W. Bush, where equal suggestions of fixed voting, etc., occurred. But what we have to realise is that with an 85% turnout for the elections, this was a majority vote in favour of Ahmadinejad, and to speculate that there were rigging and that there were unfair counting, etc., is a little bit hard to believe. I personally feel that the margin of victory was far too great for there to have been any notion of vote rigging.
You're saying this is not significant, this is very normal, just a dust. But then this is something which is unprecedented in the history of the Islamic Republic, Mr. Sohrab.
Well, it is true. It's unprecedented, and this is a move toward unprecedented. I think, for one thing, if the difference in the votes are so large and so wide, it would have been very easy for Mr. Ahmadinejad to simply say, well, come and look at the books. But the fact is that they have not even released a normal, ordinary distribution of votes from different provinces, from different areas, etc. That has not been released. It looks like they first had the votes and then they are cooking the books. So they have not even prepared that to present it. So that at least among 14 million people, even if you accept the count of the Islamic Republic, 14 million people who voted for Moussaoui, on the other side, they have doubt about this. And for a society, 14 million have a doubt, so serious a doubt. It's not just about a few votes in Florida. It is about millions of votes there.
All right.
It is a very dangerous situation in society.
Let's move on to other issues. Mr. Shervin Zain Al-Zada, all what we have for the moment is the official results, and the official result suggests that not only Ahmadinejad won a landslide victory, but he trounced the reformists in their strongholds. Does it tell anything about the future of the reformist movement in Iran?
I don't believe it does, no. The notion that there will always be a reformist movement in Iran is something that is part of any party politics. There will always be shall we call it left and right-wing views in terms of politics in any country, this will be seen as one defeat by the reformist movement. If anything, it will probably motivate them to return for the next elections with a stronger campaign and a stronger candidate that is possibly in a better position to challenge the current president in his power.
And now the big question is, what next? 4 years ago, Iranians celebrated on the streets of Tehran when Ahmadinejad won. No one then thought of or even dared raise the possibility of foul play except the defeated candidate, former President Hashemi Rafsanjani. So Ahmadinejad has won the elections, but has he lost the country? 4 years ago, voters counted on him to improve their lives. He now admits that there have been problems. That's an understatement. Inflation rates grew more from 11% in 2005 to 23% this year. Yet, during his latest campaign, he still toured rural areas where he has his strongest support, promising people a better life. But he needs the support of all sectors of Iranian society to continue his pursuit of the nuclear program and to remain defiant against the Western world. His confrontational attitude has split the nation. While most Iranians saw his standing firm against the US as a sign of strength, others felt it was an unnecessary confrontation that has proven far too expensive. The latest clashes prove beyond a doubt that there is a deep split on the streets of Iran's big cities, and it's getting worse. With the last 4 years of Ahmadinejad's leadership in mind, what can we expect from his future term as president? At home, re-election will mean he feels more confident about his position of power, possibly leading to more hardline policies. And worries about growing opposition within the country could lead him to isolate himself politically. And given that Ahmadinejad came to power promising to sort out the economy, he faces an uphill battle given the worldwide financial crisis leading him to many difficult decisions. Abroad, Barack Obama signaled before the elections that he intended to continue his attempts to engage with Iran whatever the outcome. But some US hawks feel that the re-election of such a hardline candidate may work in their favor, hoping the US will now stop trying to build bridges and instead take a strong stance against their nuclear program. Similarly, Israel, which sees Iran as a dangerous adversary, has called for urgent international action against Tehran's nuclear ambitions.
If there was any doubt before, it is now high time for the international community to stop immediately the very dangerous and relentless campaign of Iran to achieve nuclear capabilities and also to continue and spread terrorism.
Mr. Sohrab, it has been said during the campaign that economy is going to be a defining element during the election. And in this context, Moussaoui was doing very well in terms of polls. What has changed overnight?
Well, what has changed overnight is that now Ahmadinejad is in power, and the military, that is paramilitary, and the guardians of revolution, the Pasdarans, are in almost total control. And there is limiting the degree of dissent even within the government. As Mrs. Zainalzadeh said, sure, there is always opposition by definition, but the difference could also be the difference between yes and of course, as we already know that in Iran, as in the previous regime. So it is, there is going to be a smaller circle of opposition, and there has already been decolorization of the regime to a great extent, and there is going to be militarization of it. And mind you, that the Iranian Pasdaran has its own sources of many sources of financing for itself. So it is a very strong power within the Iran. So there is, although we cannot say that this is going to go on a linear line, but we are going to see the move toward that. This is the fear that many Iranians have about the future.
Mr. Shervin, was Ahmadinejad's humble background, he's being perceived as somebody who is incorruptible as compared to the other political and commercial elite in Tehran, very instrumental to his re-election?
Well, President Ahmadinejad, since his election, has refused to enter the presidential palace for his residence. He's continued to reside in his own house. He's a very humble man, and this is something which gains him credential, especially in the rural areas, as we've seen, where he has a majority of his support, because he can relate to those people in a way that they would want to be related to. Don't forget, Tehran does not constitute the entire population of Iran.
Exactly.
Iran has a population of something like 70 million people. So 12 million people in Tehran cannot be the voice for a country with a large population, and don't forget such an expanse area of land as well, which is sometimes forgotten. You mentioned something about the economy as well. Well, I would like to point out that Iran is not the only country in economic dire straits at the moment. The whole world is suffering from consequences that have been blown out of proportion over the last few years. But Iran is relying on its own economy to try and boost itself. Okay, inflation is a factor that Ahmadinejad will have to approach with extreme caution in his next tenure as president. And I believe that's something.
This is
and I believe
also
that's
somebody
that he will do.
This is somebody who thinks that handouts to the poor is the best way to alleviate the agonies of the Iranians, although the liberals have been saying in the past this is not something which is going to take us anywhere. One of the other issues is national security. The problem with the international media was labeling both sides as, with Moussaoui, Iran will be opening up towards the international community. With Ahmadinejad, we'll see more confrontation. Mr. Sohrab, can we say that both candidates do generally have different approaches to national security issues in Iran?
At least in rhetoric, they certainly would, and it was expected that Moussaoui would be less provocative, definitely less provocative than Ahmadinejad, who cherishes and thrives on provocations. So it's, and this is what was considered as one of the dangers that he imposed, brought for the country.
But
so
sorry to interrupt you here.
Now, how
Khatami was less provocative in the 1990s, but he never dared challenge the status quo. He never said anything about the supreme authority of the supreme leader and the basic tenets of the Iranian revolution. Nobody in Iran would speak against the supreme leader in any form except in some kind of hints here or there, because that would by definition disqualify them for any political office or any position. So we cannot expect that. Now, whether or not how Khatami acted, that's one thing, but with respect to the international sphere, Ahmadinejad's position was in the previous period essentially provocation, which was very dangerous for Iran. Now, how he is going to deal in the second term, it is not so clear, but he is not going to change his tone very significantly. However, I would say that those who say that Iran should be discarded from negotiation, I think they're wrong. In fact, Ahmadinejad would have loved to have that situation of confrontation, where I think the West and other countries in the world should continue negotiation with Iran in an open way, and so before going to the issue of dealing with the West, let me go to Shervin. Shervin, are we going to see a change in style and substance in the second tenure of Mr. Ahmadinejad?
In terms of national security?
Absolutely.
And foreign policy? Well, I believe that Mr. Ahmadinejad and all presidents prior to Mr. Ahmadinejad have always opened the door of Iran to the West and to concerned parties wishing to inquire about Iran's foreign policy and their potential military strategy, etc.
Right, Mr.
Iran cannot keep opening the door and having it closed back in their face.
Do you think that Obama will still offer his unclenched hand to Ahmadinejad, or now he might rethink the 6 months deadline to reassess the Iranian response to his demands?
Well, Ahmadinejad congratulated President...
I'm sorry, my question was to Mr. Shervin Zainalzadeh.
Sorry about that. President Obama received a letter of congratulations from Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, which was the first kind of bilateral relation approach in over 30 years that has been received between the two countries. It will be firstly interesting to see whether President Obama returns this letter of congratulations for election as president. this is the kind of diplomacy that is needed for Iran and the United States and the West in general in order to succeed. I believe that media diplomacy and public diplomacy is the best way forward in building bilateral relations between the two. So there's absolutely no excuse now that Ahmadinejad has been re-elected to break down any diplomatic potential ties at all. This is actually an opportunity to use the next 4 years to build and to develop not only between Iran and the United States, but the region in general and international issues.
Okay. Is the re-election, Mr. Sohrab, is the re-election of Ahmadinejad a setback to Obama's vision for a Middle East where he can deal more with moderates rather than hardliners?
Well, perhaps in some ways, but the less disturbance there is, the better it is for the continuation of negotiation between the two sides. Now, I do not believe that Obama will or should rush into congratulating someone whose presidency is being doubted by the wide group of populations, the contenders in the election, until it is settled, until it is very clear that the election is there and it's going to stay. But after that, whoever is the president, I think, of Iran, I think Mr. Obama, President Obama, should negotiate with. And openly and with transparency, so that people in Iran know what is going on, and they would not be used in provocations that may be taking place.
Okay, so what's the future of Iran, Mr. Shavin?
The future is only looking forward, to be honest. As I said, I believe that Iran is a force for peace in the Middle East, especially with the current situation in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's every opportunity for Iran and the West and the region to become involved in projects that are of mutual benefit for everyone. Iran has already shown that it is capable of helping in Iraq. Iran has already shown that it's capable of sharing intelligence with the United States and on issues concerning the Taliban. So we can start off by third-party diplomacy. We can start off with broker diplomacy and media diplomacy.
Okay.
And these are the ways forward.
I got your point.
We cannot see this election. Yeah, I'm just saying we cannot see these elections as an end of all communication. That would be just absurd, I believe.
Since you are very optimistic, while your colleague is not, let me ask the same question to Mr. Sohrab. What's the future of Iran?
Well, I wish I could be as optimistic as my friend, but I'm not. I'm very fearful for the future, because I see the continued trend toward militarization of the society in Iran, the control of the military over Iran, and that's the vigilantes, the Basijis, and the guardians of revolution, pasdarans, and the limitation on freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom of life. And that is what many Iranians are fearful. Now, let me also say to this ironic statement that Iran is not Tehran. Of course it is not Tehran. Iran is Tabriz, Iran is Shiraz, Iran is Mashhad. There are a lot of cities in Iran, and the rural population is only 30% of the Iranian population. However, there are many people in the rural area who are not happy with the situation. Unemployed young people who are there in the rural and urban area, they are concerned about their future. And what we have to consider is Mr. Ahmadinejad rode on the very high waves of high oil prices for last 4 years. And the Achilles heel of the regime is the price of oil. And now if it should fall, as it did in the last few months, the regime is going to be in a serious difficulty, or even when it doesn't, it will have a very high inflation as it already has.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there because we're running out of time. In London, Shervin Zain Al-Zada, and in Columbus, Ohio, Sohrab Behdat. Thank you very much indeed for your insight. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.